Please note, this episode contains discussions of situations or themes that some may find emotionally distressing.
I just was behind right from the very beginning. Really what I didn't understand how lucky I was. I was a working actor straight away. Coming back to the theatre was what I needed to do, because that is the only way and I think a lot of people, can learn really to act. Like a war going on between two big television corporations, and I got caught up in the middle of it. The BBC got in touch to say, we'd like to talk to you about playing this character in EastEnders. The lady that ran the BBC then, she saw the potential for it. And so she said, he is going to do Gavin and Stacey, and you're going to have to figure out how that works with EastEnders. And so my life then began to change.
In this episode of the Superpower podcast, I'm joined by Larry Lamb, the charismatic and deeply authentic actor whose career has spanned decades, bringing complex characters to life with grit and with heart. He's known for his unforgettable roles in iconic British dramas such as EastEnders and Gavin and Stacey. And Larry has not only captivated audiences, but he shared candid insights into life's challenges, from his personal struggles to professional reinvention. Most recently, Larry turned his hand to fiction writing, and he recently released his debut novel, All Wrapped Up. It's based behind the scenes on a film set in the Caribbean, and it takes its inspiration from Larry's own observations of the real-life drama and relationships that often happen behind the camera. As storyteller both on and off the screen, Larry uses his platform to speak openly now about resilience, about mental health, and the power of vulnerability. Whether through his acting, his writing, or his heartfelt conversations, his mission is to inspire others to embrace their true selves and find strength in life's ups and downs. Join us as we dive into Larry's remarkable journey, one marked by reinvention, courage, and unwavering honesty, and discover the valuable lessons that he's learned about embracing change, authenticity, and personal growth. Larry, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Good.
Yeah?
Very good.
Oh, great to have you on. I look forward to all of our guests, but really been looking forward to this. You're quite the icon. You really are.
Well, there you go. Call it what you will.
Now, Larry, we just started by doing your graph of life. How's that for you? Kind of looking back.
It's always interesting to do these things. I mean, I can remember years ago going, the first time I went to a psychiatrist, and, we'd spent an hour or two, and then he said, look, I want you to just draw for me a family tree, so I can see who these characters are that feature in your life. And so, this is a good way to lay it out, particularly if somebody's interviewing you. You just go to...
It does, and I think just looking at your graph, and we're going to go through this today, but I want to start right at the early years.
Yeah.
And, what is the earliest childhood memory that you have, Larry?
It's pretty much my mother and father having a big row at the top of the stairs where we were living when I was probably, I don't know, certainly not a baby, but a toddler, 3, 4 maybe, and they were just doing what they always did, which was shouting and screaming at each other.
And what do you remember? Were you kind of like listening in, running away, or?
No, it was, just another load of negative, horrible stuff that little boys, little children shouldn't hear about their parents.
And I suppose just looking at that and your like growing up, mum and dad at home initially, I know there were challenges, let's say, around like your dad's temper.
Yeah.
Just tell us a little bit more about that and the impact on you as a little boy.
Well, it's in his defense, he'd been badly fathered. His mother was an extraordinary, powerful, interesting, intelligent, old-fashioned, respectable working-class woman from the East End. And then she met the man who was to become my grandfather. They must have met just around the time of the end of the First World War. And he was a lithographer. He was a very skilled printer of maps. always earned very good money, had served an apprenticeship, a 7-year apprenticeship, but he was a drunk, a bullying, dominating, tiny little drunk who was always accusing her of infidelity and would go into these rages. And he picked on my father, who was the middle child. And there were 5 boys and 1 girl. And so my father, for whatever reason, was picked on and bullied, dominated by this little nightmare of a man. And so he was doing what people do, which was behaving with me the same way. He started to dominate me right from when I was a little boy. And so, he always wanted to, keep you under control. Mm. And then gradually, as their marriage fell apart over the course of 9 years, we eventually finished up with him and my younger brother together. And so I took the place of my mother. So he would bully even more and dominate me even more. Yeah. My brother got off lightly, but he was, he'd been badly fathered, and his intentions were all right, but he was so messed up by being in the Air Force in the Second World War that psychologically he was damaged. He was, I think nowadays they would have said that he was basically a depressive. And so when he was probably in his late 20s, going into 30s, he was having electrical shock treatment to cure his depression. He did eventually give up drinking because they were a big family for drinking. And then, my brother and I were living with him, but he still, he wanted to keep me under control.
And why you and not your younger brother?
I think because I remotely, my brother and my sister both look like my father's side.
Okay.
I was very, very much my mother's son. And so I think that was it. And, I was the eldest one.
Yeah.
It was like I was partly responsible because the reason I had to get married, because I was on the way.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there were all sorts of deep psychological things that were going on. But his instinct was, and plus I was, as I grew up, there's always one person in that family, in the Lambs, who was a tall one. My Uncle Bill, my godfather, was the tall one. I got the tall gene. So he wanted to make sure he kept me under his thumb. And then, when I was 17, I finally just confronted him and just said, look, if you want to carry on bullying me, you better have a go right now. Wow. And he just looked at me and said, oh, how dare you talk like that to your father? And I realized there and then that he just kept me like a dog, afraid of him. And I lost all respect for him from that point on. But then, there are lots of things I have to thank him for, an inquisitive mind, a desire to travel, an ability to put out and to talk to people and want to talk to people, a desire to understand the world, to want to study history, to understand and want to study poetry and literature. And so there were lots of positives there, but the overwhelming thing was his desire to dominate.
But was there an age for you where you thought, hang on, this isn't normal behavior? Because I guess you only knew what you knew. Was there an age where you thought, hang on, this isn't all right? Obviously, 17, you confronted your dad, but in the years leading up to that, were you just accepting the way he was?
Well, you did. You just sort of, reluctantly, I guess, you accepted it.
Yeah.
And gradually began to realize that this was something you weren't going to put up with. Yeah. And so in the end, it all exploded.
Yeah. And throughout those years then, I know you've often said you're Mummy's Boy, which is the name of your 2011 autobiography, but didn't always have the bond with your mum. Just talk to us a little bit about that bond with your mum.
Well, she left when I was 9. I always was her darling boy, her firstborn son. And, through the rows and the fights and the screaming and the tears, there was always this thing. It was like as though I remember there were 2 boys across the road from where we lived when I was about 5. My brother and I, there were 2 other brothers. And I remember they must have been going through the same sort of thing. I remember learning from them what this word divorce meant. And it was pretty difficult to understand the concept. And so from that point on, there's an element of doubt in there. But I was always reassured by her whenever the rows had got really big and they were maybe making up as they did, that she would always be there. Because in the end, when I was 9, it got to the point where, I'm sure just there was nothing else she could do. She'd met some guy who wasn't scared of my old man and they just went off and started a new life together.
Wow. And speaking of new lives, I know around 9 or 10, you then moved in with your grandmother.
Yeah, well, that was the great positive in my life, that we went and lived with Nan.
Okay.
And so Nan took over and, she'd raised her for, what was it, Molly, Billy, Alec, Ron, Terry, Pauline, the 6 kids. She'd raised them. And so suddenly she was looking after these 2 boys again. And you just kind of stood by Nan and she taught you how to do everything, because that was what you were there. You were going to be doing, you had your duties. You did all the washing up, all the grocery shopping, you did all the washing, all the ironing, all the shoe cleaning, everything. You did it. So she taught you how to run a household.
And this was Nan we spoke about at the start, who married your dad's dad, right?
Yeah.
This lady. Okay. So you spent a lot of time with her. And so that's 9, you all move in with her. And then fast forwarding again to 17, you've confronted your dad.
Yeah.
What's your mind like as a 17-year-old Larry?
Yeah, well, as a 17-year-old Larry, basically I just knew. I mean, I was always, when I was a boy, my mum would always make sure I was reading, and her mum and dad were giving me books to read far, far beyond my capabilities. But, by the time I got to 11, as used to happen in those days, you took what they called the 11 plus to get a scholarship to the grammar school. So I got in the best grammar school in the area and found that I just was not ready for academic life. I was too emotionally messed up. So in the end, I wanted to leave grammar school. I was always, I always had a lot of jobs. So I was always working in a fish shop.
Yeah.
I was working in a greengrocer's. I was working on a market stall selling fruit and vegetables.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to earn money. I was earning money to buy myself clothes, basically, because what it turned out, I hadn't realized at the time, that whilst he was always earning good money at what he was doing, he was a design draftsman and then he was a model maker. And
That's your dad?
Yeah, my dad. But he was also, like his father, a gambler. He'd not drinking, he'd stopped that, but he was gambling. And it was funny that with hearing about how wonderful his job was and all the money he earned, he was always broke and borrowing money from me because I was squirreling away the money that I was earning on whatever job I was earning, so I could buy myself a decent pair of shoes and buy myself a jacket or whatever. And in the end, I thought, I know I've got to do something, got to get away. And because of the French thing, the one thing I could do, I signed up for a German course because my uncle's company in the waste paper business had a branch in Germany. So I thought, well, maybe I could get a job there. So I'd picked up basic German, and that had gone very well. And then I started looking for a job, and I found a job in Germany selling encyclopedias to American servicemen who were stationed there in the occupation forces.
Wow.
And so on a autumn's day, I got on a plane at Heathrow and I flew to Germany. And as I flew, I thought, this is it. I ain't ever going back there. And that was the beginning of my life.
Wow. And how old were you then when you moved?
Just a month or so short of 21.
Wow. Okay.
And that was it. That's when I got hold of my life. That's the point where my life began. The rest of it was their mess.
And at 21 then, so it's funny because I lived in Frankfurt at 21 as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Great time, great memories, but not a place
that many people... a few years in between you and I living there. When were you living there then?
I was there in 2012. 2012.
There you go.
Yeah.
I was there in 1968, so 44 years. Wow. Slightly different.
But you were over there then. So all of that in your childhood, as you mentioned, everybody's back here in England, start of your life. That one thing, Larry, I'm intrigued because when I meet people who've maybe had a turbulent childhood or like your father with his father, it takes someone to say, right, almost enough is enough. You mentioned before about psychiatrists and psychologists. What age were you when you were like, do you know what? I need to unpick and understand everything that's gone on so I don't pass it down.
I'd fallen in love with, and subsequently married an American nurse who was a civilian nurse working for the American forces in Germany. There were a lot of civilians that worked for them. You didn't have to be in uniform. But she heard me talking really negative stuff about my mother. And it was her saying to me, look, you really need to talk to your mother about this because all you're doing, it would appear to me, is passing on all the negative, poisonous stuff that your father infected you with in his bitterness. And she made me understand that it was possible to figure out why you are the way you are, which was a concept, I certainly had never thought about.
What did she do to make you figure that out?
I don't know. She just said, you need to talk to your mum. Find out what your mum says about this. You're telling me about what your mum was, and that's all about what your father had told you, your mum. He was always accusing her, like his father with my grandmother, of infidelity.
Yeah.
Whilst, as it transpired, when I did confront my mother with it, that the boot was on the other foot. And as she said, my friends are still around, so you can go and talk to them and they'll tell you what he was like.
And so that's in your early 20s, your 20s and 30s then. So how long were you in Germany for?
I was in Germany from 68 to 70.
Yeah.
And then I met somebody that it was a school friend of my brother's. And it was when they were starting to bring all the oil and gas ashore in Britain, and they were looking for people to train as technicians. Yeah. And whilst I'd never passed the exams in any sciences, I held on to enough basic stuff for him to say, "Well, do you understand? Do you understand about it?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well," he said, "I'll get you an interview," and he got me an interview, and I got a job. And the job went really well, and then he was working out in Libya, and they wanted somebody to go out and like double up on the job with him, and so that you could alternate, so he could do 3 months and then you did 3 months. So I finished up going to Libya and working out there for over 2 years on what was, although I certainly didn't understand the fact that it was a state-of-the-art installation. They designed it and set this up, and it had never been done anywhere before because it was vastly expensive, and the Libyan government had nationalized the oil business, and so they were doing this as an experiment, and I was working on it. And then I married Jackie and went to America and met one of her family, and his brother, one of her cousins, said, "My brother works in that funny little area of the oil business." So I finished up having an interview with the boss man. And at the end, I said to the boss man, look, I don't have any qualifications or anything. So he's like, I'm not worried about that. He just tell me what you've been doing. So I told him, and he just said, right, when do you want to start?
Yeah.
So, went back, got everything sorted out, emigrated to America. So I'm in America in 72. So I was 25 and married to Jackie. But that fell apart because, I was too tempted being on the road. I was, I should never have gotten involved to that level. And so, we separated. And then I was moved around and got a big promotion and finished up in Canada, in Eastern Canada, in Nova Scotia, where I picked up again on my hobby that I'd started in Germany of being an amateur actor.
Okay.
And then in Canada, that eventually led to me doing an audition for the professional theatre. And in like the beginning of 1975, I think it was the last day of 1974, I became a professional actor.
Wow.
And then so my life sort of like all of a sudden took on a different line.
Yeah. And so you've gone from Frankfurt to Libya, America, Canada. Now the world of acting has opened up for you as well.
Yeah.
So this is, because I know in a minute we're gonna fast track a little bit, but from 1975 almost up to the turn of the millennium 2000s, those 25 years then, what started to happen? I know we're not going to cover all 25 years, but...
Yeah, well, really what I didn't understand how lucky I was, to have been literally walking off the street, do an audition, walk out the place an hour and a half later, and I'm an actor. And then I was into work. So I was a working actor straight away. Well, which is a bit of a phenomenon, because you're always hanging about trying to get a job. So I worked and worked and worked. I worked, until in North America, in Canada, and then in New York on Broadway. And then somebody said to me, you should go back to England because you will work there. So I bought a ticket and came back to England. We'd never intended that. So 9 years after I'd left, I came back to London as an actor. And through the jobs that I'd done in America, I had an agent that was operating over here in the UK. So I started to work straight away. That's when I did the Superman film, or 2 Superman film at that time, and then eventually another one, and then started to do TV series. So it all got, and it started off with a West End show. I was in a show called Philomena in the West End, and then, TV series. I just kept going and going and going and going and going, but with no realization of just how lucky I was. It's silly, just taking everything for granted. Yeah. With huge ambition. I was going to be a superstar without any imagination, without any understanding of just how much work that takes. Work. It's not all about parties, which it was for me. It's all about real, intensive, hard work. Learning, listening, reading, understanding, experiencing it. I was just having a good time, just like some great big kid. Yeah. And so all these things happened. I didn't take advantage of the real openings that were there for me.
Why not?
Because I was so full of myself, I think.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. I just knew I was going to be a superstar.
Which you need that confidence, I guess, to some extent,
but
not
confidence.
Arrogance. Yeah.
Confidence isn't based on just your dream. Confidence is based on hard work. And your understanding and knowledge of what it is you do, your appreciation of the level of focus it requires to be what I wanted to be, and you can't do one without the other.
But when was the turn? Because I always say don't wish for it, work for it, right? But when was that turning point for you that in your mind that was like, right, I need to get my head down and actually work for it then?
I think it was getting more and more involved in the theatre instead of sticking to this dream of being a film star, which I confused with being a television actor, because they're 2 different worlds. And whilst I got opportunities to do film work, I was never focused enough and, shall we say, experienced enough to get just how different those two media are. So I was going and doing television and bits of film, but that coming back to the theatre was what I needed to do, because that is the only way and I think a lot of people can learn really to act. Going out there in front of an audience night after night on a tightrope with no safety net. And that's kind of what got me to the point where I became, a competent actor, but certainly not skilled and practiced enough to have any chance of becoming a film star. And convincing myself that it was all going to be working out all right, and convincing myself I was kind of like a superstar in the making, and just living that phony dream.
But were you always quite self-aware, though, of who you were and how you acted, or not necessarily until these turning
I was
points?
just up myself,
Really?
I think is the best way of putting it. Just phony dreams, taking everything for granted, as I said.
But then, as you say, me asking about that turning point, was there any moments where maybe you got a big rejection or a knockback that knocked you into place again?
Some knockbacks, but it wasn't the knockbacks. You just experienced knockbacks, you know. Like I think there's about 4 really life-changing sackings in my life. Like when you set yourself aside for the next 6 months or a year to be doing this big job, which you've got to learn, and you've got to be, I think 4 times I've just got like really booted out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why?
The first time, just purely and simply, the entire company got kicked out of the theatre, so everybody was sacked.
Right.
So, and then the next one was a big business affair that was going on between, like a war going on between 2 big television corporations, and I got caught up in the middle of it.
Right.
And everybody that was in it got the boot. And then the next one, that was purely and simply, they realised that once I was involved and once I'd started work, that I wasn't going to cut the mustard, so I was booted out. Yeah. So that was about 2000.
Okay.
And maybe that's it. I think that's it. It's three big ones.
And then you're in the 2000s now. 2008 comes around, EastEnders.
Well, actually, Gavin and Stacey came around
the
first.
Year before, right? Okay.
So Gavin and Stacey was in 2006.
Okay.
But even then, when I went in to do the audition, I kind of acted the way I thought they wanted the part to be played.
Okay.
And then my agent phoned me afterwards and said, how did it go? And I said, well, I think it went well, and I think they all liked me, but I don't think I was convincing enough for the director. I don't think she thinks I'm right for this. Anyway, she phoned me about an hour later and she said, you were right. They do all like you, but the director isn't sure. However, they're going to get Alison Steadman in, and you're going to get to read and be filmed doing it with Alison, because Alison couldn't be there the first time. So Ruth, as the writer and creator and the producer, was reading in for Alison. But then they got Alison in and we just clicked, and that was it.
Wow.
So that all came. And then, of course, interestingly, I don't know why, they didn't sign us up to any sort of contract, which they would normally do with a tryout of a TV series, to tie you into it. They didn't do that. And so when very quickly afterwards, at the early part of the coming year, 2007, the BBC got in touch to say, we'd like to talk to you about playing this character in EastEnders. The first thing they always ask is, do you have anything else? Because EastEnders, they don't allow you to work on anything else.
Okay.
So if you're held by a contract, that's it. They don't even talk to you.
Right.
So I was in the clear, and then I got, the character of Archie Mitchell, And then they had, fortunately, the lady that ran the BBC then, a lady called Jay Hunt. Jay Hunt had always had a very, very fond soft spot for Gavin and Stacey. She saw the potential for it. And so she said to the people at EastEnders, look, this has got to be made to work.
Wow.
He is going to do Gavin and Stacey, and you're going to have to figure out how that works with EastEnders.
Okay.
And so they did. And so my life then began to change, because whilst people knew me from stuff that I'd done, it was all mixed up with theatre, and I'd never been somebody who'd been doing regularly a job on telly to where the character that you were playing became bigger than you.
Mm.
And so all of a sudden I was playing Archie Mitchell, you know, in back in the day when EastEnders was riding really high, and I was, you know, I was the love interest and then the husband of the darling Barbara Windsor, Peggy, and, you know, one of the Mitchell clan, and all of that went with it. So people began to know me for that. But then creeping up was Gavin and Stacey and Pamela and Mick, and gradually, and then, of course, you know, EastEnders, I came, you know, they bumped me off in EastEnders, as they always do if you're a baddie. And then, you know, gradually, Gavin and Stacey, that came to an end.
Yeah.
And so I was set aside in a new life after both of them. And of course, just as people had said to me, you know, you do those two parts, bad enough one big part, you've done two. Well, it took the BBC 5 years to give me another job.
Why?
You ask the question, why? People had said to me, that's what's going to happen, because you become known and the character's bigger than you.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? So that people visually regard you as somewhere in the middle of Archie Mitchell and Gavin and Stacey. So, as I say, bad enough it's one, but they've got a confusion there too. 5 years.
Okay.
But what happened is, in the closing days of my time at EastEnders, the word came down through channels that the One Show wanted to know if anybody in the cast would be interested in going back to their old school. They were doing a feature on that. So I said, yeah, I'd love to. So I went back with my old biology teacher I'd stayed in touch with over the years, and went and did a little film about my grammar school in Edmonton. And when it was all done and it had gone out, the boss man called me and he said, did you like doing it? I said, yeah. He said, yeah, we really like what you did. Would you like to do some more? So I started to do little history-based pieces for the One Show. And then I wrote an autobiography. And then I got a job on LBC having a talk show. Yeah. And then I started to do like documentaries about various things like history and going on game shows. And so suddenly, during this period where I didn't have any work as an actor, I started to have a really lovely life being me. And that was a big, big eye-opener, because I really found I enjoyed it, you know?
Yeah. And is that because then suddenly you were being Larry? You didn't, I mean, obviously it's great acting, I'm sure, but in all these documentaries, the One Show, you're sharing your life, you're being exactly who you are, right? You're not acting.
No, it was just being me. You know, that was me asking these questions.
Yeah.
It was me going and feeding my inquisitive mind that my father had definitely engendered.
Yeah.
It was me fascinated to find out about an aeroplane that had gone down in Second World War out in this part of Normandy, you know, being on the beaches and understanding just what the men went through when they were storming ashore on D-Day. All little things like that, you know, seeing how they were building decoy systems to stop the Germans being able to bomb a city by having lights out near the city that looked like the city.
Yeah.
So I had a completely different life for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And then, right out of the blue, came a job on New Tricks, but that, for various reasons, all I did was one season and that closed down. And then, so now we're at 214 and, things, when was, I forget, I mean, like 14, I was still doing bits of theatre and doing just general work. And then, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And, because I'd written the autobiography, they wanted me to have a go at writing a novel, and I had a go at writing a novel, and it was hopeless. I didn't know how to write a novel. So I just spent, that was 2011.
Yeah.
So I think I really started, I realized then that, if you're going to write a novel, you've got to do a lot. I'd always done a lot of reading, but if I look through my library, the majority of what I read is non-fiction. So I began to sort of, I suppose, focus on the possibility. And then when the COVID kicked off, somebody, during the course of a conversation over the phone with an old friend of mine who's very literary, she said to me, "You've got to be able to fictionalize a part of your life, And I started to explain to her why I couldn't. And then I realized that a story that I'd been carrying around in my head for years as a film in which I, old Mr. Wonderful, could have played the central character, it could work as a novel. So I said, okay, let's put the phone down. I'm going to have a go at this. So I did, as an old friend had taught me. I wrote 1,000, 1,200 words and sent it to her, and she called me back. She said, "That's it. You've got it. You've got the voice. You've got the story. Just start writing." And I wrote every day for 14 weeks. And in the end, the novel in its original form was written.
And this is all wrapped up.
And this is all wrapped up,
just launched in 2025. So tell us a little bit about the novel then.
Well, basically, the last big job that I was doing before I became an actor, while I was in Eastern Canada, was rebuilding a whole section of the province's electrical power line system. So I had about 4 or 5 gangs of guys that were working on the lines, and they were my responsibility. Everything they did, every place they slept, every dollar they earned, everything was my responsibility. So I started as a professional actor and left that job, and then worked in the theatre for the next 2 years, and then gradually started to work in television and film as I was going into my 30s. And working with television and film, I began to realise that I was out working with a crew, and in that crew was somebody that did the same job that I did when I had crews working for me. And that person is known as the first assistant director. That's their title, man or woman. They are the first assistant director. So I started to watch them and see how they worked, understand about the way it related to what I used to do. And while far more stressful and far more, shall we say, to me, much more interesting, but really, really on the edge all the time, because a film unit or a television unit away on location is so vulnerable to anything. The weather, aeroplanes, noise going on, people going sick, traffic accidents, people can't turn up. Anything that goes wrong on a film or television show being shot is the responsibility to get it sorted out of the first assistant director. And so I thought, right, I could tell a story about the reality of this business, which is not about glitz, glam, champagne, red carpet and all that. It's about regular working people who get up every day at, any hour necessary, get home stressed out, get up the next morning, keep on doing it. That's what it's all about. And so what I wanted to do was show the reading public just exactly what that world was all about. It's a business that entertains the world, right? And I've worked all over the world doing it. And film and television crews, it don't matter where you go, what language they speak, they're basically the same characters. You'll have the same conversation if you can speak their language. So that picked me up. So, the German and the French, that was a good start. So then I learned basic Italian and basic Spanish, enough that I can communicate with ordinary working people who I'm really interested in, people like me, because they become your family. The actors, your colleagues, you're with them for the scenes you're doing together, but you might miss each other for weeks, right? But the crew, you're with them every moment of every day.
Wow.
And as long as you're not a big head, you become part of that family. So I reckon over 50 years, probably, I don't know, at least 10,000 people that have become part of the family I'm of.
And they're the ones, as you say, behind the
you
scenes.
See them every day, and that's what they do. They're behind the camera.
So much,
they're the filmmakers or the television makers.
Yeah.
You draw the crowd as an actor. Yeah. You're up there on the big screen and out there on the front with your name up, right? But they're the ones that go and do the work. They're, as a couple of friends of mine said, the unsung heroes of that business, and that's the story I always wanted to tell.
So people can find that it's out now, right? Which is all wrapped up, and they can get into that and learn about those unsung heroes through your writing. And it's fiction, but it's based on your whole life experience, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Love that. And I have to go back just very quickly before we wrap up. 2016, she went into I'm a Celebrity. How was that?
Yeah. I really liked it, but it was because I wasn't volunteering. Because if you get on there, the way to become featured on there is to keep volunteering. And I wasn't volunteering. I don't mind being put in a cupboard full of snakes, spiders, rats, scorpions, whatever. I don't mind that, but don't ask me to drink those potions they mix up for you. I couldn't have done that.
No.
So I had a lovely time.
Yeah. And just looking back as well, I know we jumped around a little bit, but being on set with Gavin and Stacey and the whole crew, how was that? 'Cause obviously you came back for a big Christmas.
Well, it was just, the whole thing was this extended joyride, really. I mean, really hard work. You mustn't lose sight of that, because, it's one thing when you're doing drama, most of the time people are having a laugh, but not when you're doing comedy. You're having a laugh, but it is serious stuff.
Like what then? Just
it's
so
intense,
we can
intense because, when the way that they make a program like that so effective is with the editing. So you don't just see somebody saying something funny. You see the way that 1 or 2 or 3 or maybe 4 people respond to it. And that means that every single section of it has to be filmed from every member of the cast's point of view. So if there's 6, 8, 10 of you, you will, during the course of a day, you'll do that 50, 60, 70 times.
Wow. Okay.
Well, it's pretty, it's tough, exhausting, stressful, because you're always trying to get it, reproduce it at the same level every single time.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
Yeah, gosh.
You have a laugh, it can be fun, but it's very serious work.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I think, was it something like 19 million people tuned in at Christmas, which I remember.
I mean, and just people, I'm going around the country now selling this book because to me, I realised when I did the autobiography, the book doesn't sell itself. You've got to go out and talk to people. So I'm doing festivals and going to events all over the country. Literally, I've been just come back from Scotland all the way down on the east side. I'm going to go right across the country from east to west along the south coast. Yeah. I'm going to be going back up to the northwest, coming all the way down via the Lake District, Liverpool, down into Wales, and finishing on Barry Island in Marco's Caff in probably end of November or beginning and end of November, where the tour finishes. Yeah. But you just begin to realise how much people love Gavin and Stacey. Yeah. And so on that occasion where we were up for a BAFTA, Ruth had sent me a voice message. We were up for the most kind of magical moment in television of the year of 24. And Ruth left this message and she said, look, I don't know why, but they've nominated me for Best Actress in a Comedy, which I don't have a snowball's chance in hell of getting. However, if we do get awarded the Magic Moment Prize, James and I would like you to stand up and make a little speech on behalf of all of us. So I was deeply moved by this. So I thought, right, well, you've got to write a speech, just a short speech, a minute maximum. And so I worked and honed this thing down. And the final line to it was that in writing Gavin and Stacey, Ruth and James created a family that everyone can belong to forever. And for that, on behalf of everyone, I thank them from the bottom of my heart. And that is what I sense when I'm in a hall or a room or a theatre full of people that have come to hear me say hello and talk about the book and life. That's the feeling I get. This is a big family that they created. Yeah. And that's why it is such an extraordinary part of contemporary British life.
It is, and I think it is that. It's because you can watch it and you just relate to it, don't you? It's even the bit I was remembering, where Pam walks in and says, Baba Ganoush. Yeah. I mean, I don't know why that should be funny, but it's hilarious.
I know. I know. That's one point where we were all laughing as she was doing it because the camera was on her and we were like,
yeah.
Baba Ganoush.
Oh, God. And I suppose now, live today, just before I kind of going to go into Quickfire, how are you today, Larry? How's life?
I mean, life to me today is better than it's ever been, and it just gets better every day.
Wow.
That's it, I'm just having a good time, going out, meeting people, talking to people. I mean, you're selling a book, but, they want to buy it, they buy it. And if they don't, that's it. Oh. But just going out and meeting the great British public is just a treat.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. It really is. And just before I share with you, obviously, your superpower, because my cogs have been turning on this one here, a few quick fire round questions for you. Now, we're having a dinner party, 3 guests. There might be people with us or no longer with us. Who would you invite to Larry's dinner party?
I think I definitely would like Barack Obama.
Oh, yeah.
And if he's going to be coming, I would love to meet his wife, Michelle.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And then I think somebody like, I'm tempted to say, no. I mean, somebody out of history.
Okay.
I think probably Napoleon.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a lot of history, politicians around the table.
Yeah.
Good old discussion.
Yeah.
Like it.
That's what would interest me.
And if we were to give your life a film title, what would we call it?
I don't know. But on my phone, I've got a poem that I wrote, which for me sums up my life. A friend of mine, my age, we were back and forth writing poems at different times about the reality of getting older. He's a bit older than me. And so he said, why don't we both write a poem that we'd like on our gravestone, right?
Okay, go on.
So I can't tell you what I would like to call my film about me.
But we've got a poem.
But this is what I wrote. How could anyone do all that with only one life to live? How could I possibly fit all that in? How much could a lifetime give? Too many blessings for a lad to receive. The people I'd meet, the friends I'd make, boundless joys of family, the journey unplanned, the route I'd take. A life too great to contemplate for a dreaming boy with nothing but hope. It did finally end as I'd known it must, but steeled and steadied, prepared to cope. Only tearful smiles as I'd said goodbye, nothing but laughter, nothing to grieve. The little boy who'd lived a dream, far too big for a boy to believe.
Wow. Beautiful. When did you write that?
I wrote that not that long ago, maybe, I don't know, six months ago, maybe. It was following the death of a friend. And then we'd been writing poems about dying and about the end of life, because it's like it's a way to confront it. It's too easy to kind of just look the other way.
Yeah.
And so by writing these poems and dealing with the way you feel about it realistically, it's been a great relief.
Yeah.
It's lovely because you are going to go, right? That's it. Like it or lump it.
I know.
And so that's what came out, He said, let's do one where we both write a poem to go on our gravestone.
Wow. Powerful. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you
for sharing that with us. And my last quick question, they're never quick questions with me. If I could give you an unlimited supply of one thing in your life, Larry, what would it be?
Love for the world. And I wrote a poem called I just wish the girls could take over.
What do you mean by that?
We live in a world run by men.
Yeah.
Would you give men the job if you had to choose between men and women about how to run peacefully anything? Got it wrong. Got it wrong completely. I wrote a poem about it in 1983 because I was freaked out by what was going on. And this poem still works exactly the same way now. It's still a disaster because it's still run by men who just have to be aggressive. There's something inside them.
Yeah. Look, I'm with you. I'm fully with you. And I feel like we could talk for another hour about that topic.
Yeah.
But look, it's my job here, Larry, to share with you what I think your superpower is in getting to know you for the last 45 minutes or so. And I'm really stuck in this. Has never happened between two. And they're two very, very different, but they shine through in everything that you're doing. I actually want to share both with you.
Right.
Because the first one that shines through about you is gratitude. I mean, the whole poem that you've just read is the gratitude for what you have in your life, for the memories, for the lessons and the learnings. But the second one is something that clearly you've had from a young age. Driven, you've said a lot by your dad, it's curiosity.
Yeah.
You're asking questions, you're out there, I want to travel, I want to go to Libya, I want to go to America. Why do these things happen? I want Napoleon at my dinner, I want to understand. Gratitude, curiosity, what do they mean to you?
I mean, they're really what my life is all about. Being lucky enough to be grateful, learning to be grateful and not take anything for granted, but to want, I always think to myself, I mean, it's obviously laughable, but, if I'm there and, I mean, when they finally decide that's it and it's all gone, I'm going to be really upset if I don't know everything. I want to know everything. I'd love to speak every language in the world. I'd love to be able to play the piano. I'd love to be, I want to know everything, but I don't have enough time. But it doesn't stop me trying. And people will say to me at times, how on earth do you know that? Well, it's because I want to know, so I ask questions about it. Mm-hmm. Like I drove here this morning with a guy from Guinea-Bissau, and I know the name of the country, but I didn't realize that it was part of old colonial Portugal. And so I've learned all about Guinea-Bissau and the people and the languages and everything else that comes from there. I just want to know.
Yeah. But do you think you can train curiosity into people? Because a lot of our work today, we find people want people to be curious, younger generations.
Yeah.
Do you think
but the problem is, I think there is, everything is available to you at the press of a button. You don't have to do anything really. Well, I suppose you have to press the button, right? But everything is too accessible. But I think the training comes in making people want to know. I mean, we live the education system that I was schooled in this country was still a very, very well organized, well thought out way of taking, fairly intelligent people and moving them up, right?
I have a final question, really, and it probably goes off the back of that beautiful poem that you read, which is, Larry Lamb, what's your legacy? What do you want to be remembered for?
A person who achieved a different version of what they thought they wanted to achieve, which was basically to make a mark, but learned a lot along the way, but never lost the ability to talk to people from all walks of life as an equal.
Wow. And I think that just goes to show, from the young lad growing up through to you getting the taxi here today, speaking to people, I think asking questions, being curious, but above all, you continue to be grateful for everything that you've had and do. So
Absolutely.
Larry, you've certainly made your mark here, and I look forward to watching and championing in the future, and hope people will read your book all wrapped up that I know is available. So thank you for joining me. Thanks for teaching me so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Huge thank you to you, our listeners, for being part of our community by watching, subscribing, liking, and also leaving comments on all of our videos. It truly means so much to us, and it helps us to grow the show, making it possible for us to invite even more amazing guests for future seasons. And if there's someone you'd love to see on the show, do let us know. Your suggestions help us bring on incredible guests that you really want to hear from. Feel free to leave those in the comments or send a message directly to me on my social channels at Gian Power. We'd love to hear from you. Have you found the episodes? How have they made you feel? Have they inspired you, challenged you in any which way? Share your experience. We always love to hear your stories. And we've got some super exciting plans ahead. And with your support, we can take the Superpower podcast to even greater heights. So if you're enjoying the show, please hit that follow button on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you're listening. And hey, if you're watching on board your in-flight entertainment, remember to follow us when you land. Or if you've got Wi-Fi in the sky, hit that follow or subscribe button now. For now, thank you once again for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode of the Superpower Podcast with me, Gian Power.